Testing, testing. Are we on?
We are on.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Prestige Living Podcast. So with that, who do you want to be?
Hello, welcome to Prestige Living, our podcast here in Orange County designed for young entrepreneurs as a platform to showcase their talents and share them with you. I'm your host, Jay O'Brien, your co-host, Jordan Wilson.
Thank you, Jay.
So, we all have passions in life and, things that make you tick. So when I personally was growing up, I was an avid skateboarder. I can remember exactly when and where I was when I got my first board. I remember the brand and the time of year, the shape of it, the color, everything. And when I was really little, I would pedal my way up and down the street and wear knee pads to prevent my knees from bleeding from the grip tape. And later on, when I was 9, I got my first non-Nash board. If you were born in the 80s, you know what a Nash board is.
Yeah.
Did you have a Nash board?
I probably did, but it's been a long time since the 80s.
You know what? I'm thinking you didn't, because you would know if you had a Nash board. These were those ones with the big ass tail in the back and the nose that round in the front. So anyway, my first non-Nash board, I remember going to the swap meet right here in Costa Mesa and building my very first complete. And a complete is what it's called when you buy all the parts at the same time: the deck, the trucks, the wheels, the bearings. And for all the skaters out there listening to this, you know exactly the feeling I'm talking about when you get a complete. It's a brand new setup. There was nothing better. And from that skateboard on, skating was an addiction for me. I was so passionate about learning the skill and advancing my tricks. I would spend days and nights, countless hours really doing this one activity. Even when it was too early in the morning to skate or too late at night, I would just watch skate videos back to back of my favorite pros. And I really thought that one day that would be me on the screen and kids would be watching me. And this lasted up until I became a teenager and transitioned my efforts to playing in a band. I was always crazy about music. I mean, you know this about me.
Mm-hmm.
I started my music collection when I was in kindergarten. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I'd wake up at 6 in the morning just to go downstairs and watch recorded documentaries and music videos on Michael Jackson that my dad had taped for me on VHS, and I was just obsessed with them. So anyway, when I was in middle school, I began playing drums and later singing in bands, and eventually, just like skating, I lived for it. And just like the 9-year-old version of me glued to the TV, fantasizing about the day I'd be featured on the Wheels of Fortune section of 411 Video Magazine, I was now envisioning the world tours and the different adventures I would embark on and what major headliners I'd be playing with being in a band. As I got older, I would spend all my free time practicing, recording, writing, and performing. I remember when I was in college, I would set up my schedule to allow for such craziness. I would start at 7 in the morning, punch out 4 classes until around 11:30. Then I'd drive home, change my clothes, drive to my job that I started at 1. I'd be there until closing, which was around 9:30. And then it was me time. I would drive to my lockout rehearsal studio, which was in Fullerton at the time, and I'd practice sometimes until 2 in the morning. And even after college, this pattern lasted all the way until 2011. I ended up recording 2 full-length albums, did a self-funded coffee house tour in 2007, and pushed and pushed and pushed until one day the band broke up. And in a sense, was kind of an illustration that my passion was a hobby and not a career. Now, people always discourage one another from these niche passions, whether it be acting or being a rock star or a supermodel. And if you told your friend today you're going to pursue an acting career, for example, they would probably just laugh at you. Instead, people anchor toward what would be considered more realistic or perhaps just easier, not so high risk. And even perhaps more than that, not so high of a rejection ratio. You probably have some experience with this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Anytime you branch out and do something a little bit different, people that are scared of it, they try and discourage you.
And you had some experience in that arena, I think, at some point.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So people don't do well with rejection. We know this. And because of this fear, people easily become crippled and fall in a pit of complacency. it's important to know that your passions can very well be monetized and very well could be your career given the right persistence and strategy, especially in today's day and age with such a wide and available distribution channel like YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these different social media outlets that, by the way, are all free. In order to translate passion into money, all you need is talent and a big enough audience. So if you're listening to this right now, in fact, jot down this book. The title of it is called Crush It. It's by Gary Vaynerchuk. I was turned on to this book in 2010 and absolutely fell in love with it. It should be on every entrepreneur's bookshelf out there. And it goes over exactly this. Our guest today started a beer company a few years out of high school. And for those of you who are familiar with the world of beer startups, you know how high the failure rate is and how virtually every beer out there that you see on the major shelves of grocery stores and distribution outlets are controlled by only a handful of monster companies. Our guest, Evan Rapport, created Evan's Lager in the spring of 2010, earning a total of 19 medals all over the country since the company's been created, and eventually developed another 12 under his brand. On top of all of this, he's in the middle of a couple of very new and exciting ventures that we can't talk about quite yet at the moment, but he's constantly making strides to move forward in such a narrow and highly competitive space. I met Evan when I was referred to him in 2013 and sold him the house he lives in now that he promises he will install a water slide in. I am so excited to have him on the show and to have him share his ongoing success story with us. And without further ado, here is Evan Rapport. Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's dive right into this.
I'm sorry. First of all, in the name of journalistic integrity, I want to thank Evan for bringing beer into the office.
Yes, thank you so much.
And
Cheers, guys. Cheers. Perfect. So, getting into this, you started Evan's Lager 5 years out of high school, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how did this come to be?
It was kind of I don't want to work for my father kind of thing anymore. Because out of high school, I worked in the aluminum industry from quality up to production, out selling aluminum, and I just got tired of having to answer to his questions. So,
who's doing that? Wow.
Wow, that was not me.
You know what that is? I don't know why, but this is like integrated to my phone, my computer. It's like the dumbest thing ever.
Thank you for rudely interrupting my
thanks
my spiel.
Thanks, Samer the Hammer. Okay, so continue.
So I just wanted to try something different and gave it a whirl. Just stepped into the beer industry, tried to make our own recipes, our own beer. We brewed, like I mentioned before, our own batch of beer when I was 18, a few batches, and we thought, what the hell, why not try to make beer? Everybody else is doing it, and that's what we ended up doing, and looked at putting in a brewing facility. The costs were way too high out of what we could afford, so that's when we started contract producing and got a good relationship and a good recipe that we developed and a good relationship with the brewer, and made these beers that we won, 17, 18, 19 awards with, and we're still winning. We won the Shanghai Beer Festival, I think it was bronze for our black lager.
Wow.
A few months ago. And that beer was old, and it's still placed, but it's a bigger beer. It holds itself in that bottle. But and then things evolved over the past few years. We did a contract brewing, started a distributor, and now we're actually have our own brewing facility in Irvine that we partnered with and have taken over. Not so much taken over, but I would like to say partnered with, because we didn't necessarily take over. We're still producing all their beers, but they're all coming underneath our name, and we're going to grow that brand and grow those beers and brew everything in-house and get rid of the contract brewing completely.
So when you started, were you already a home brewer?
Not necessarily. Okay. I was a drinker.
Okay. So you were a beer enthusiast.
Yes, if you want to say it that way. I was a beer enthusiast. Some might call it a drunk, but in a kegerator at my house at 20 years old, you kind of...
I mean, I think that to a certain extent is pretty natural. I mean, there's a lot of things that I like out there, whether it be food or the occasional libation, but I've never thought about opening up a distillery because I don't have the knowledge for it and maybe not the passion like you do. So what does that look like when you're thinking, okay, you know, you're just starting into this and it is highly competitive and you're just like, well, I guess this is just going to be, was it identified as a hobby at first, or were you set on making it a career from day one?
No, it was a career. A hobby is fun to have, but that doesn't pay the bills. So
Right.
when I'm going to try to go into an industry, I know it's going to be a career, and that's what we were doing from the beginning. We need to make a living. We need to be able to pay our bills. So that's kind of how I looked at it. But I mean, that was the whole plan. Let's make a living out of this and not just,
Right.
not so much as a hobby, but we want to make the beer and appeal to the people and get them the flavors they want and make an award-winning beer, and that's kind of what we did. But
So now, Evan, when you're 2 years in the game, you start winning all these awards. Did you experience any like competitive static or any pushback from any like the big companies?
Yeah, we didn't experience too much. But the reason why we got a lot of feedback and push from the other breweries or big companies, which were the big three type companies, was because of the styles we were making. They were making the lagers and everything, which isn't what is heavily craft driven. Lagers are starting to grow a little bit more. But the beers that we produced, they directly competed with, a big brand like a Miller or Coors or Bud. So a lot of our competitors would fight to take down our handles that we got out there. We've had people slice our six-pack handles so you can't grab them.
You're kidding.
That happens?
People do that?
Oh yeah, beer industry is rough, and still to this day, even now with this brewery, we're fighting other craft breweries who are just trying to steal our business, and it's dirty out there. It's not a friendly business.
You pointed to the bottle and you said this brewery. Can we say the name of this?
Yeah,
brewery?
Bayhawk Ales. That's
So
the
coming
brewery.
like I have a service industry background. Coming from the restaurant business, I know like Bayhawk is a huge name as far as restaurants go. I mean, anytime you go to like a Claim Jumper or you go to Lucille's and you see like, oh, it's Claim Jumper's Honey Blonde, that's actually Bayhawk's
Yeah,
Honey Blonde.
that's a big thing. One of the reasons why we chose Bayhawk to partner up with was because they didn't have a brand really themselves that they sold. You guys are drinking these Bayhawk bottles now, but we don't sell that much of it. 95% of our business is all draft business, and I'd say 70% of that 90 is all private label, and people label their own beer. So it was a good opportunity for us to take this brewery and merge it with our brands and our branding, and create a brand and create recognition and sort of step away from the private label, but still produce it, still have all that business, and don't push it away or anything, but create a brand for us and in Orange County, in Irvine now, and go that route. So
is Bayhawk then, is that under the parent company of Evans Lager? How does the hierarchy work?
It's kind of complicated right now because like I mentioned before, we are a public company. We are working through these different steps. We actually have a stockholder meeting the 27th of next month, I believe. So right now it's kind of, Bayhawk actually owns one of the Evans corporations. It purchased it, which was a set of brands that we sell around the country. But right now it's kind of, this other product I was talking about is kind of separate. They're not
Right.
merged yet. We haven't done anything yet. We have to have the stockholders vote before we can actually move forward on any of that stuff. So right now Bayhawk is the parent company, and they're producing Evans Brewing Company products, but Bayhawk's going to start to slow down, and then all the branding will change to Evans Brewing Company, and that's what we're going to put all of our focus and all of our efforts into, is to that brand, because the Bayhawk brand has had some bad reputation in the past as far as their own branded products. Some of these bottles, for instance, they used to fill them on a 2-head machine, and there'd be contamination issues, or it wouldn't purge enough of the CO2 out, so air would get in and oxidize the beer, make bad bottles out in the market. Since then, we've done a lot at the brewery, but I put in a new 6-head Maheen machine, which is state of the art, to prevent these issues. But the consumer already might have bought this bottle of beer in the past and has said that was contaminated. I don't want to buy it anymore. So that's one of the reasons we are, like I said before, about taking Evans is going to be the new brand out of Bayhawk.
Rebranding the whole thing.
Yeah, because we want to have a new image on the shelf. We want to get rid of this image because it has had some bad reputation because of the bottles, and it just, there's not really much of a reputation. You did mention that you knew of it in the industry and stuff, but most consumers don't really know much about Bayhawk. It's just some quiet little brewery in Irvine that doesn't really have that much stuff out in the market.
And did you have experience with a public company prior to this, or
No,
this is all
it's
brand
all
new
new.
to you?
Yep.
And when did this, for lack of a better word, acquisition take place, or merging?
It's December of 2013. Me and my father purchased stock actually he purchased stock, I didn't purchase stock, but he purchased stock in the company and then proxied for a new board of directors vote. And we went out and proxied to all the stockholders, and eventually they elected us to the board of directors, which was December 13th, 2013. And that's the day that we had the meeting, and we took over. And
wow,
that guy who was running it quit that day, and we took over, and I got appointed as president, and I've been running the company ever since. So
wow.
So Evan, you mentioned your father. I wanted to ask you, some of the agents in our office, when they kind of break the news, if you want to call it, to their family, their support system, that they're going to be transitioning to an all-commission position, sometimes they get pushback or questioned, are you sure this is what you want to do? I want to ask you about your support system, your family. Like when you expressed that you wanted to start a brewery, brewing company, what was the reaction that you got from your family?
Well, it was more of a I wanted to get out of the family business. I wanted to do my own thing. I actually wanted to get out of the family business for 10, 15 years, collect outside knowledge, working for other people, other companies, other businesses, and then bring it back and go back to the family business. But where I'm at now, I don't think that's ever going to happen because I'm happy where I'm at. We're doing good. But as far as what happened in the beginning it was kind of like I want to get out, and he supported me and helped me out do it. I mean, I was 22, 23 years old when we first started talking about it. I didn't have the investment money to do any of that. So he was my primary investor that helped start this whole business. So, I mean, he's been there. One of our new logos that we're coming out with, you can see right there, it's me and him butting our heads together because that's all we do.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm looking at the logo now. It's good.
That's great.
Yeah, we butt our heads over, what's better, a square or a circle, even though they're both not the same, but they both will mean the same thing at the end of the day. It's a shape, but we will butt heads constantly.
So how does that work in the realm of business? I mean, is there a lot of involvement aside from financially with your father, or are you pretty much running the show?
He does the entire stock side.
Okay.
I don't touch that. I run the day-to-day operations, run the business, oversee the sales team and do all that side. He does not really know what's going on with the brewery. He doesn't deal with that. He deals strictly with the stock side. And because it's being a public company, there's so much involved in that, you can't do both. It's too hard. So he is focusing on that, and he has I think he's got 3 other businesses that he runs that I focus on the brewing side, and that's it.
Okay, so in the very beginning, and going back to Jordan's point, we can relate a lot of this to what we do in the sense of sole proprietors kind of diving into something that they've never done before and risking everything. And that's really what the show is about, is just the entrepreneur climate, if you will. And one of the things that comes to mind, especially when I started, is when you hit the ground running, you don't necessarily handle everything administratively right off the bat, right? You're not going to go out and, at least as a real estate agent, you're probably not going to create a corporation right away and a business bank account and all these different things that maybe if this career ends up not being for you was kind of always. So instead, you let the business grow the business and it evolves, and eventually you put these things in place. So when it comes to accounting and tax liability and the way you're going to structure your company, did you have to kind of just learn that as you go, or did you have guidance?
I learned most of it myself. The guy who previously ran this company was very good at accounting. He had an accounting finance background, and he kept documents on everything. So I actually learned a lot of what to do by just looking at his work.
Right.
At the same time, we had CPAs come in and as far as the accounting side, come in to help us make sure everything was fine. But I've learned a lot of it myself. We've expanded now to the point to where I have a full-time bookkeeper and to help out with these things. But
Right.
you know, being a business owner, you kind of need to know the ins and outs of everything, or else people will end up stealing from you, or stuff can disappear, stealing, whatever.
When you first started and you were kind of hit the ground running, what did the distribution channel look like? What did the production look like? I mean, it probably wasn't like a well-oiled machine at that point. It was more minimal.
When I first started Evans Lager,
yeah.
When that happened, we couldn't find a distributor, so we ended up having to hand sell all of our stuff ourselves. We formed a distribution company. It was, 3 of us, my brothers. We actually started selling. Our distribution company was called Three Brothers Distributing.
Interesting. Okay.
So we actually ended up going out there and, excuse me, hand selling all these beers, and then grew into, well, we can't just sell 1 case or 2 cases to a store. We did that for a while. Now we need to sell more products, so we ended up opening a full-fledged distributor, spirits and beer and wine, which we didn't sell spirits or beer, but we did the spirits or wine. But we ended up bringing in all these craft breweries, and we brought in a lot of craft breweries in Orange County from Nevada, Idaho, around California. Before craft beer was really big in Orange County, a lot of liquor store business, which was primarily what we did, didn't have craft beer, and we put it into a lot of those stores. But that's what we ended up having to do it all ourselves. We lost a lot of money. It was a battle trying to get our brand out there, but that was the whole goal, was to get out there, because these big distributors, they don't want to help or sign on little companies.
Right.
And it's just because if they would, their portfolio would be massive, and they just can't give enough focus. So there's reasons why they don't do it, but it's tougher whether you're like we did a contract or you're a small brewery. You have to go out there and sell your own product, because distributors aren't going to pick you up because their portfolios are too big. They can't manage them. There's too much going on, so you have to just do it yourself.
So what does that look like? I mean, you build your first batch or however many batches or whatever, and you're like, okay, we've created the product, we need to go distribute it. We don't have a distribution channel yet. We are essentially the distribution channel ourselves. Do you remember the first place you went to say, hey, this is our product, you got to sell it?
I think it was the liquor store behind my house, my first house that I lived in over off Lakeview, and he wouldn't take it.
He would not take it?
No. It was a liquor store on Orange Store, a few blocks down. I can't remember what it was called. A few miles down. They took it and started selling it.
So how does that conversation go? If I'm a liquor store owner, what's the proposition? I have no idea. Do I have to buy a certain amount from you? Is it on consignment? I have really no idea how it works.
Well, beer you can't sell consignment. You can't sell on consignment.
Okay, so I got to commit to it. I got to buy it from you.
Mm-hmm. You have to somehow convince them that it's going to pull off the shelf.
Okay.
Our convincing was, I grew up in Yorba Linda. I went to school here. People know me.
Right.
I think we'll be able to sell some product. And he put it in there, and it sold well. One of the other places we sold was the Canyon Inn, and that liquor store that's not there anymore right next to it.
Yeah.
Was it Yorba Linda Mart or something?
Yep.
That was one that we sold a ton of beer at, because it was right there. And we sold, told everybody to go to that store.
Right, everyone's thinking, oh, this is Evan from high school. He has a beer company. Let's go buy his beer.
Yeah, but, you got to fight these liquor stores. They also want to make too much money. You got a certain margin that you need to make to cover your bottom line. But a lot of these stores, they try to squeeze out, extra percentage on the new guy. They try to not just take the standard. Let's say the standard's 25%. They'll go to you and they'll want to make 35 or 40%, which prices you out of the market compared to everybody else. So being like a self-distributed or a small company, you self-distribute, if you don't have the leverage of a big house, a big distribution house, to get the sale, they will try to mark up your product more and more when these other big companies have leverage, and it's really tough out there. It's not easy market to get into.
And when you're mentioning like the big houses, are you talking about like the Southern Wine and Spirits or the Young's Market or something like that?
It's those they have leverage. All the big distributors, Southern Wine, Young's, what's the one over here, the Coors one, Reyes Group, or Straub. They have leverage, because they have the big brands. They're going to sell it and tell them, not necessarily, they don't dictate the price, but they give them a suggested price, and the retailers will usually stick to that suggested retail price because everybody else down the street is selling it for that price. So they have to be competitive with their neighbors to push the product. But for somebody like me, when I'm selling in one store, they'll sell it for, they want to make more money on it. Well, I'm taking the risk. I'm going to make 45 or 50% on your product.
Do you have to agree to the retail price?
No. It's once you sell it,
they can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want.
But it could cause frustration if it doesn't move or you appear to be overpriced. But at the end of the day, they're the ones who have skin in the game, right? They bought it, and if they can't sell it, it's more.
But you
or less
want the
their
reorder.
fault. Got it.
You want them to keep going. So yeah, they buy one case, let's say, and they.
What's one case?
4, 6. Well, back in the lager days, there were 6 packs, so 4 6-packs.
Okay.
So it should have sold for, let's say, $7.99. They would sell it for $9.99. Well, not many people will be willing to grab a new 6-pack of lager for $9.99 versus $7.99, which is pretty close to a Corona or a Stella or something.
Right. So
it priced us out of the market. People weren't willing to try it. A lower price, we'll sell a ton more of it. So I mean, if they don't participate on the pricing of being a fair price product, then you could sit on the shelf and never get a reorder, and then 6 months, 8 months later, a year later, if the beer goes bad, you got to replace it, and you got to go back there and take care of it. So
right.
You can't sell bad product.
And ramping up and kind of starting to learn as you go and whatnot, was there ever a time where you just completely doubted the whole operation, where maybe it was a moment, maybe it's something that happened, or maybe it's just psychologically, but where something happened and it was so discouraging that it was your first real failure?
It's getting into the beer business it's full of a lot of failures.
Okay.
But you can't quit. I mean,
that's what sets the entrepreneur apart from the employee.
Yeah. You just can't give up. I mean, we lost a lot of money doing the distribution thing. I mean, one time I was fed up, but we powered through it. Was when we were just selling our beer, and I saw the dollars coming in and saw what our costs were, and was like, we're never going to make any money doing this. We're losing too much. But we took that next step. Let's find more products to sell. Let's find juices. Let's find chips. Let's find, one of the things we sell is malt liquor. Let's find all these different things that we can sell to make it work, and we eventually made it work.
So when you say find other things to sell, it's a product that belongs to someone else, but you're just distributing it?
Yeah.
So the malt liquor thing, there's an abnormally large market for that, right?
Yes, it's very, like I was talking about before, pricing. That's extremely price driven. You could be, 10 cents higher than the can next to you, and your can will get pulled. Because who's drinking the malt liquor?
Right.
People with the least amount of money in their pockets. So we fell into the malt liquor side because we were looking for more products to sell. We found these malt liquors. We started selling them, and that company went out of business, so we had to buy those brands, and we still own those today, and we sell them around the country. Not a very proud business to be in, but we think of it more as a commodity. Like you're trading, not stocks, but futures or something. That's kind of what I see it as. We're buying cheap beer, selling cheap beer. No marketing dollars, no guys in the field, no nothing, and it's just something to bring in some extra revenue. But that's a whole different market. And one of the things that recently happened was kind of funny. It was a Super Bowl. They had, I think it was Budweiser went after craft beer.
Oh, saw that commercial.
I don't remember exactly what it said, but it said something like, "Our beer is not for
It's
smelling."
like not made to be fussed over or
Yeah.
something like that.
So we kind of like said, well, shit, we're doing this malt liquor just as a behind the scenes thing. We kind of want to bring this forward and go, you know what? You guys are coming after our business. We're going to go after yours. And they don't put a dime into they put a very little money into their malt liquor brands. But at the end of the day, I know how the big three make their beers. I know what goes into them. I know how cheap it is because I'm in this malt liquor side. It's just a crazy competitive price-driven market that we can actually compete in because we can keep the price down low enough with what we produce back in. It's actually produced in Wisconsin is where we brew it at.
So you're thinking if everyone's buying and selling malt liquor and there's really no marketing budget, not a whole lot of time and energy spent into it because it more or less sells itself based on price alone, if you could just get behind it and really push the hell out of it, you might be able to take over to an extent on volume. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
We've had, in this market in Southern California, we've had the distributors come after our price and slash their price to a point where they're losing money.
Just to gain the market share.
Just to gain the market share.
So Jay was asking you about, like the moment that you felt where you doubted yourself. What was, on the opposite side, what was like the tipping point as far as, okay, this I can live off of this business? Like, when was the tipping point as far as that goes? Like, you knew you had kind of found success.
Well, it really, I never really found success until we purchased those malt liquor brands, which was...
Always going back to the malt liquor.
I know, but that's what paid the bills while we were going, the malt liquor business. That was probably early 2013, and we actually bought the brands in late 2013. I think it was August or mid to late. But that was when I actually saw us getting in the black and making some money. It took that long.
Even with all the awards that you had won with like Evans in 2012 and all that.
Most people, how many times do you see a bottle on the shelf, left versus right? These two bottles here, and this one says award.
Right.
Right.
They might be different styles, let's say, but you want that IPA, you're going to grab that IPA.
Right.
You're not going to grab the brown because it's award winning. The awards they're good to show that you can make good beer, and
Just
the
kind of
recipes are good.
establishes credibility.
Yes, but it doesn't get you any pull off the shelf. We thought it would, but it didn't really do that. But a lot of our faults were distribution side. It's hard to get the product in a lot of places. Like I said, going to those small liquor stores and getting a fair margin for them not overcharging. It just was very difficult.
It's pretty interesting. I remember that the first time that I had ever been exposed to Evans Lager, I was on a flight back from New York, and I'm in the plane, and right before takeoff, I received a message from you. It was the first message I've ever received from you, and you told me that you were looking to purchase a home, and we were talking just back and forth real quick before takeoff. Anyway, so I'm headed back to California, and I'm flipping through Sky Mall magazine.
Oh no!
And there's an Evans Lager. It was like, what is it? Blow up
suit, yeah.
Wait, what's a blow up suit?
It's it looked like a beer bottle, but it was a suit that had a fan in it.
Like a costume.
Yeah, had arms, legs. You walk around in it.
And I remember just flipping through this, and I'm thinking, I think that Evan is my new client.
Well,
and I hope he's wearing the suit when I see him.
Well, I guess the moral of the story, Evans is still going and Sky Mall's out of business.
That's true.
Oh my goodness.
Evans Lager outlasted Sky Mall.
And malt liquor is going to pay for his water slide.
Is a cash cow.
The water slide. One of these days we'll get that installed.
Beer slide.
Do you know roughly what market share you have in Orange County versus domestically versus what? And
it's so minimal.
Let me preface it with this for the people who are listening. I know very little on the topic, but I was exposed to quite a bit when I watched that one documentary back like 3 or 4 years ago, Beer Wars. Have you seen that one? And it really just illustrates how the monsters out there control everything. And basically, once a smaller beer starts to get some traction, starts making a little footprint, even if it's minimal, they'll acquire it. And it's actually pretty interesting, the things that are exposed in that documentary. For example, when they show Bud Light, Budweiser, the 6-pack, the 12-pack, the 18-pack, the 24-pack, the 30, it's not built for variety. It's not built to give the consumer options. It's built just to take up more space on the shelf. So when you look, you just see red or you just see blue, and everything else kind of gets put aside. So anyway, that being said, I believe what's the market share for Sam Adams? Do you know roughly?
No, I've not.
I think it's something like 1%. I mean, it's so low, and everyone's heard of Sam Adams. They've got national commercials and whatnot. So it just makes you think, well, geez, if Sam Adams is so small with their market share, people who are just coming in, it's got to be so much smaller than even that. And then it does bring into question, how do you make money on this?
Jay, I was just able to look up. Sam Adams has 6.5% of the market share.
6.5. Okay, so yeah, minimal.
Very small.
So anyway, do you even bother measuring that sort of thing to see if it's growing, or is it just almost irrelevant?
To me, it's irrelevant.
Okay.
There's a huge market out there that's very competitive, but there's plenty of room to grow because the consumer is willing to try new things these days. Everybody's willing to try. They'll see a different bottle on the shelf they've never seen before. Kind of why I'm slowing down the Bayhawk and doing the Evans, because it's going to be something new that people are going to be willing to try.
Right.
There's constant room for growth. Like I said, everybody's willing to accept it. The stores are willing to accept it. Like you said, the big three, the Miller Coors, Bud, they want a whole shelf of their color to get their recognition. It's shrinking now. They're still getting the pull. I mean, their business is dropping a few points. I mean, it's very minimal. But there's room to grow. The shelf is opening up. The retailers in Orange County, San Diego is already huge down there.
Right.
LA's growing to where they're like, let's make more room for these other products. Let's not make this a whole gray shelf for Coors or a whole blue shelf for Bud Light. So there is a lot of room.
So in the next 5-10 years, I mean, do you see there being a dramatic change in what's on the shelves in major grocery stores? Do you see it kind of evolving into this craft world?
Not necessarily, no.
No.
It's too expensive. Most consumers don't want to spend that kind of money on beer all the time. I think it's evolving into a wine, and that's all it is. I mean, you see these 22s.
Right.
There is 12. There is 12-ounce, 12-pack, 24-pack. A lot of people aren't producing them, but in reality, if you want to go to the pool and bring a lot of beer and not spend a fortune, you're going to pick up a 30-pack or whatever a big brand is that you can drink in the heat and not die of a hangover or whatever, because these beers are big.
And one thing I've noticed is, when I was 21, there was one kind of Blue Moon, one kind of Shock Top, stuff like that, which was considered sort of crafty, I guess. But now those beers are coming out with all their flavors. So you still have like the name recognition of the big, okay, Blue Moon's a pretty recognizable name, but now Blue Moon makes all kinds of flavors.
I just saw a new Blue Moon the other day. I think it was like a horchata.
Oh God.
Something or other, and they're trying to compete. But the thing is they can come out with a beer like that, put it on the shelf, and somebody who doesn't know anything about craft beer is going to go, I've heard of that, or horchata sounds good,
right? And
they're going to buy it. Mm-hmm. They're going to get more pull than a lot of these craft breweries that actually make a really good horchata beer. I mean, because some of them do. I've never had one.
I remember reading there was a whole bunch of static towards that Budweiser commercial you were talking about that aired during the Super Bowl. I think they slammed like pumpkin peach beer or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then there was this article and they wrote how Anheuser-Busch owns a beer company that produces a pumpkin peach beer.
Yeah, they just bought it. They
Yeah.
just bought it like right before the Super Bowl.
So it's like they're slamming their own.
I think it's a plan. They
Yeah.
were doing. It drew up more press.
Yeah.
I
For
feel
that
like
new brewery they just bought.
I feel like with anything, I mean, especially with beer and with music and things like this, you've got the I mean, I'd hate to say this with beer, but you've got the talent and the uniqueness of a product, and then you've got what appeals to the masses. So this was always a very frustrating thing for me growing up playing in a band, because there was kind of the the understanding that this will never be a Hollywood Bowl type of band, because it's just not that genre. You know, you could develop a cult-like following within your realm, but it's never going to exceed that because there are too many fans of Kelly Clarkson, you know? And it's like... And
You better watch yourself.
Yeah, sorry, Jordan. And I actually often compared these two because it'd be like when people are crazy music enthusiasts, and it's like, you know, to each his own, but you're crazy about a band that in a lot of musicians' eyes might be considered mediocre, and they're a pop sensation, and there's really no unique structure to their songs or to their writing, or even maybe even their talent. It's frustrating because it's like, what makes you want that so badly? And I often compare that to the person who's just, you know, it'd be like me saying beer is my life, and I absolutely love beer, and I love tasting different beers and what have you. And you said, wow, that's really interesting. What is your favorite beer? And I said, Bud Light. And it's like, you know, there's some element of to each his own, but then there's people like Evan who would probably make his skin crawl, where it's like, but you have no idea what goes into that beer compared to these beers. And to your point earlier, you said you know exactly how it's made and what's in it and whatnot, and it's like frustrating because why? If you love it so much, why do you love that?
You sound exactly like what you just said about music is exactly the same thing about these craft brewers. They see the same thing.
Right.
They want to make, they might know that they're not going to be big, but they want to make that beer that's better and fits their genre of beer.
Yep.
Better than, you know, anybody else can. And there's a lot of breweries that do it, and they might not understand why people don't accept their beer, their crazy IPA that's 14% and, you know, malty as can be. Why can't people drink it, everybody? But everybody wants to drink that Kelly Clarkson or Coors Light.
Exactly.
You know? So it's the same. It's almost the same thing. There's a lot of industries where it's the same thing. Anywhere you can do, you know, whether it's coffee, music, beer. You know, there's craft sodas now. I mean, it's everything. It's everything.
Well, I was just going to say, I think, you know, a lot of it, of course, is marketing. Like you get the marketing budget and the advertising budget.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Stone down in Escondido. I still consider them to be. I mean, they're huge. You know, San Diego's a mecca for craft brewers, but
again,
they're top 10 brewer in the country.
Yeah, they're huge to us, right? But I mean, like, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who've never heard of Stone.
It's getting,
but it's getting bigger.
It's getting to a point where Stone is kind of like, it's kind of, I think it's more well known than Sierra Nevada. They became famous, I think, because of that arrogant bastard beer.
The name,
you know?
the
name, the gargoyle, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. That's what really started them. I found some documents in our computer system of Stone. I think we brewed their beers before.
Wow.
Bayhawk's been around for so long. We've brewed a lot of people's. Anybody who's had, you know, like we had a fire or something that shut down their production or they needed more room, we produced it all there. But you know, like a Stone brewery, it's getting to a point to where it's kind of like that cool thing to where everybody knows it. And the first craft brewery you might hear of might be Sam Adams, which is brewed by the same brewery that makes my malt liquor. But it's Stone as being so well known out in there as being one of those first craft breweries. It's kind of like a staple out there.
Didn't Stone do something similar where they created a distribution company?
Yeah, they distribute through all Southern California.
Right. And the thing I find interesting about this is that you mentioned earlier how competitive it is, even craft beer to craft beer. And, you know, in the realm of music, I feel like there's more of a camaraderie. You've got the people that support one another because you're in the same boat, and I kind of always thought that's what it was in the beer world too.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, people do support each other. They do help each other out. It's more the distributor and the sales teams.
I see.
You see a handle that can be weak, or you see a 6-pack that or a 22 ounce that you want to replace once it runs out. I mean, but most of the time, these craft beer companies are really tight together. They're very friendly with each other.
I recently went to Austin, Texas, and when I was there, we went to a couple different breweries. And anytime you take a tour at a brewery, it's always interesting because the person running the show, you can just see how much they are passionate about beer, which I think is just incredible. Whether you own the company or you're an employee of the company, that you could feel so passionate about something you get to do every single day. And one of the things that he said I thought was really interesting. He said the way he views a successful brewing company isn't necessarily, we created this recipe that everyone likes or this or that. His thing that he thought was the hardest to achieve and one of the biggest successes, you might say, was creating a recipe that can be replicated forever and always taste the same. Especially because I suppose there's so many variables and moving parts in beer that just the littlest things could make it all go wrong. But, when you pick up a 6-pack of Corona or whatever, it's going to taste like Corona every single time. It's never going to stray from that. What are your thoughts on that?
Consistency is, it's all chemistry brewing. It's cooking and chemistry. Mm-hmm. You can repeat it anywhere you go. You can get the same ingredients anywhere you go. The only thing that really varies is your personnel, which if you give them a strict recipe, and one of the big things that we've been fighting right now is water, are the big issues, the big variables. So if you know what you're doing and know how to make a beer, you can do it every time. As long as you have a good recipe, you have good people, and your water is the same wherever you're brewing. Which these days you can get RO water, which has nothing in it, and add your minerals to match your original recipe. But it's doable. It just can be a little bit pain in the butt, but it's not. Repeatability is easy as long as you have good people.
Right.
We didn't have good people in the past, and the beer would not taste. Why does it taste different this week than last week?
How many employees do you have right now?
When I first started, we had, I think, 11 or 12 people in the brewery. And our brewery didn't make very much money.
Yeah, that's a lot to start.
That's in the brewery.
Wow, okay.
And you got the general manager, and then we had a part-time bookkeeper before I started. But we didn't, like I said, we didn't make any money. One of the things when I went in there was I looked at the costing and everything, and once I learned the QuickBooks and all these, accounting software, and I cut costs. Right now we were down to 5 people in the brewery, because that's all we needed. And then now we're down to 3. I'm actually down to 3. I've cut down.
So you're running more lean.
Oh yeah, cut down people. We lost a good amount of business because of the fire. We had a fire in September. That was in the news, giving all the recognition to the restaurant, not us. So we got no publicity out of it.
Oh no.
But we lost business because of that. So we shrunk, but we were already lean. 5 people in the brewery, just turn and burn, making beer, keeping the quality up, and that's it. Like I mentioned, the bottling machine, that was a full-time job for one person. Now I was able to get rid of that person and put in a new bottling machine to make it more efficient, and the company to make it more profitable, because the last 10 years the company didn't make any money, barely made any money.
What's, you're talking about Bayhawk?
Yes, Bayhawk.
So what is a day in the life for Evan? What do you do? Do you work weekends? Are you off weekends? Do you work Monday through Friday hours?
Try not to work weekends.
Okay.
Because everybody needs to
Unplug.
have some, yeah.
Yep.
I was on vacation, going a little off. I was on vacation for a week in the Caribbean. I broke my phone the second day. It was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
No phone, no tech. I'd be sitting at dinner. Luckily, we're on a cruise, so people are sitting around the table. There's no phone service.
Right.
So I had
you were really unplugged.
Yeah, it was literally 7 dinners. Well, 6 dinners, 7 dinners of just full conversation. I don't know when the last time you've had that.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's crazy. These days with phones, somebody's always, on their phone.
Yeah.
But it was very nice to get out. So on a weekly basis, I try not to work on the weekends if I have to. If an order has to get out, or if I have to make sure that the tank's at the right temperature, or to be ready for Monday, I'll go in. But for the most part, it's I get up at about 4:35, watch my TV for an hour.
Yeah, I really want to know. I really want to know the morning routine. I always want to know.
I don't have a night routine.
What's the morning routine?
The night routine, I don't have time to watch TV or anything because I get home late. So I watch it in the morning. I get up at 4:35. My girlfriend wants to watch her shitty shows like Bachelor and all that other nonsense. So she watches it after I fall asleep. And when I wake up in the morning, I watch like Banshee or whatever my shows are that are recorded. What is it? Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. I was talking about, which was awesome. I watch those shows in the morning, get out of bed about 6, unless I need to be at the brewery. Sometimes, like next Monday, I got to help with the orders, so I'll be there. I'll be leaving the house around, 4:30, because I live, 60 miles or 50 miles from work or something. So I got to fight all this California traffic.
Sounds like you need a new house, new location. Yeah?
I know, guy.
I love my location. My house is worth a good amount, but I couldn't get anything near the same here. My house probably is worth less than yours.
Probably.
Yeah.
But
anyways, back to
mine will never have a water slide.
Yours will not.
And yours will.
Yes. But after I get up out of bed around 6, hop in the shower, or if I shower the night before, I usually just throw on my clothes, grab a cup of coffee on the way downstairs, and head to work. Sit in an hour of traffic every day, head to the brewery, make sure everything's going right, and then head to the office and start my day, and do whatever I need to do to make make the company run and make my employees happy. That's one of the tough things that I've had to deal with was fighting with employees, not fighting, but making them happy. And whenever they're unhappy about something, fixing it to where they're not unhappy, because a happy employee is a good employee.
Yep.
And it's that's one of the toughest things to deal with.
What's a very unconventional focus or thing that you do to get new business?
Well, for us, there's not really much we're doing right now. For us, it's unconventional. I guess in the craft beer industry would be we offer private label. But that's not really too crazy.
Yeah, I know that with entrepreneurs out there and anything that's going to be highly competitive, it's interesting to see which paths people take. Sometimes people mimic the person who is successful prior to them. Other people kind of explore different avenues. So I'm always curious to know the day in the life and the morning routine, specifically the morning routine. And then, of course, if there's anything out of the ordinary where you see business come in and most people would never, ever, ever think to do that because it's just so weird. We see that a lot in real estate.
Yeah, there's not in the beer industry. You're selling beer. There's really not much else to it. We've done, when we were doing the lagers, Evans Lager, we would do those beer suits. We would have friends in them walking around the beach or doing things like that, but it didn't turn sales like we were hoping. So in reality, what we do now is the best thing we've done is private label. That's you go into a restaurant and offer the private label in it.
Yeah, I like that. So
everybody wants to grow their own branding. If you could have your own Remax Prestige beer,
which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, let's get on that.
Which your clients could come in and they get the 6-pack or 12-pack or 24-pack of your own beer, and grows your own branding.
How small of batches would you make for something like that?
Well, see the sticker?
Yeah.
Just put a new sticker on it.
Because I'm thinking you do that for a client, and it's not the Remax Prestige brand; it's their brand.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different regulations with the government, but it's all workable.
Interesting. Okay, so I want to talk about your biggest successes. Jordan talked earlier about the tipping point. What are maybe 3 things where in your career thus far, which has been growing immensely, where you sat back and thought, holy shit, like look at what I've created, or look what I'm a part of now. And maybe that's when you're on vacation, you're unplugged, and you're able to think, you know what, this would have never happened at my old job, or anything like that, where there's just been a moment of achievement that you're extremely proud of.
I don't really have that very often, I have to say. I don't, it's an ongoing achievement, but I don't really, let's say, pat myself on the back or anything, because I don't think I'm there yet. I'm not retired.
That is the true definition of a business owner right there. It's like you never stop. So everyone's like, "You're doing so well," and you're like, "No, I'm not. I have so much more to go." But I think it is important to reflect and see, look at your milestones, especially year after year, quarter after quarter. You look at it, and I mean, for one, it's auditing your growth.
Well, I think when you bringing that up now. Auditing your growth or whatever, that just made me think of looking at I think it's our second quarter profit, what it turned into versus what the previous years was. We made the previous year, 2013, we didn't make much money because we had all these stockholder things. I mean, I wasn't there; it was the previous management. But anyways, they didn't make much money, and seeing how much money we made the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, then we had the fire. But seeing how much money that I was able to save the company and make more efficient and make better product, better quality product, it felt pretty good. Now that you bring that up, but
so
I mean, then the fire came and I was like tumbling down downhill.
The fire, that damn fire. Okay, so I have a few more questions in closing here. Number one, because I gotta know the process of this. When you get into Sky Mall magazine,
we actually didn't do anything for that.
What is the thought? Is it like this guy going to Denver is just like flipping through and is like, dude, this makes sense. I need to buy this.
Well, if you saw the ad, it was for Above All advertising. And they make all sorts of things like that.
Okay.
And we asked them to make beer suits for us. So they made the beer suits, and they were all proud of it and put it in their advertisement. We actually called them afterwards and go, "Did you put us in Sky Mall?" Because we had, I think it might have been your phone call. I don't know. But we had a phone call.
I didn't order one. Well, I ordered 10.
That you guys called us and said, "Hey, are you in Sky Mall?" And we're like, "What the hell? I don't know." So we called him, and he apologized to us, like, "Please don't sue us. Like, I'm sorry, but we thought it was really cool." I'm like, "No, that's awesome. Go for it." And it was in Sky Mall. It was in there for years.
So the purpose of the ad wasn't to sell those; it's for this company to be like, sell beer suits.
Yeah, we can sell any kind of suit, which they're starting to become more popular. I've seen breweries have them now.
Okay.
Which we did a lot of funny things with those beer suits. We did.
You gotta elaborate on that.
We did a blues festival that we tried to sponsor. And they wouldn't let us because I think it was Coors or Bud or something that was the title sponsor. So, I don't give a shit. We just went there, poured our beer in the craft beer pavilion, and we're like, we're not, getting very much business, or not business because we weren't selling. It was for charity or whatever. But I had two of my guys walk all the way across to the other side of the venue, which was, 1,000 feet through a huge crowd. Go to the bathroom, put on the suits, and then have to walk all the way through. They kicked us out after that, and we're very happy about it. But the guy yelled at me. I was like, "Oh, you didn't say we couldn't do this." And they had to change in the bathroom, which was 1,000 feet away, so they had to walk back here. It was pretty funny.
So the next time I crash a party,
wear an inflatable beer suit.
That's the moral of the story.
The thing is you gotta somehow get like a cooler backpack. Because once you're in there zipped up and you got air going in,
you're sweating.
You can't, and there's no hole for you to drink a beer through, so you got to just have your own.
I think it'd be great.
Your backpack.
I think it'd be great to see someone just walking in that suit, and then because of heat exhaustion, they just pass out, and the beer bottle just falls over.
This is what happens when you have too many beers.
So, the other question I have: if you were to provide advice to someone now, and not even necessarily in the niche beer world, but someone who was 22, 23 that's listening to this right now and is thinking about starting their own business, where, especially in an industry where the odds are kind of against you, it's a little different if you're like, I'm going to start a business and like a computer repair business. It's like, okay, well, you can pretty much start making money straight away doing that. You know, you're going to find people that need their computers repaired and whatnot. But I mean, doing something so much more obscure that's highly competitive. What would your advice be to an entrepreneur like that?
You just, I don't know. You got to know what you're doing. Whatever your passions you want to get into, you have to know it. But not just that. Like a lot of breweries start up, the guy loves beer and has his own recipes, or 1 or 5 or 10, and wants to open up his own brewery, but he doesn't know shit about accounting, or he doesn't know shit about marketing. You know, you got to, if you're going to take the risk, you have to know every part of that business you're going to get in, whether it's marketing, accounting, sales, whatever. You need to know, whether it's a little bit or a lot, you need to know what you're doing. And you also have to have, you know, a little bit of ambition and risk-taking to step into it. But I guess it's worth it, because guess what, if you're young enough, if you're 20, 22, you can always find another job if it doesn't work out.
You can afford the risk. You can afford the failure.
You know, when we got into the beer industry, I was out of money. My father was almost out of money because of his own business, but because of the economy, we almost went broke because of it. But it was, you know, it's worth the risk, because myself, I could find a job and make money doing something else. For my father's a little bit different story, but you just got to be able to take that risk. But I wouldn't do it unless you know enough about everything, every aspect of that business, because it's not worth it. You don't want to pay for that learning curve. You can a little bit, but you don't want to pay too much for that learning curve.
Right. Yeah, and I think that failure is inevitable in whatever capacity. For us, we see it all the time with just simple rejection, you know, and people, it cripples them, because what they do is they're fearful of being rejected, which is, again, it's bound to happen, and by prolonging the inevitable, all you're doing is postponing your success. And maybe it never happens because you're too scared. But you gotta embrace failure, because it will inevitably lead to growth. That's how you grow. You grow from uncomfortable situations and repetition. And, you know, like I said in the introduction, I used to skateboard as a kid, and I was extremely passionate about it. And, you know, anyone out there who's listening to this who's ever skated or snowboarded or done any sport, you never think, hey, I'm going to try this trick, and then magically you land that the first time you've ever tried it. It's just, it never happens, and business is no different.
Well, how many no's did you get when you started being a realtor?
Right.
How many no's did you get?
How many no's do I still get?
Yeah. Well, now you're used to it. You've been beat up by enough no's to where...
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, a yes feels
thrives
like
on the no.
I had to buy a beer suit from one client just to get his business.
Evan, tell us about that first batch that you brewed when you were 18 years old.
It was a Christmas, if I remember, it was a Christmas ale or something. I don't know. We brewed it in our backyard. Me and my dad brewed it, and I don't know. I wasn't even old enough to drink.
How'd it turn out?
I was gonna say, was it good?
Not really. I wasn't a big fan of beer at 18. You know. Oh well.
That's
whatever.
so funny. It's like, let's brew beer. Do you drink beer? No. Are you gonna drink this beer? Probably.
It's kind of just like a bonding experience, but it wasn't even a good beer, and it was not an all grain recipe. It was one of those extracts, which is nothing wrong with them, but it really was like those extract brews are like a cheater version of brewing.
Right.
But it wasn't very good. I still have the kegerator that he bought for the beers that we produced. The first one was a Christmas ale or something, but I still have that kegerator sitting actually at my work, covered in dust. Doesn't work anymore.
Love that. Yeah. So for the people listening to this, where someone wants to drink Evan's Lager or any of the beers under your umbrella, where do they go?
Well, Evan's Lager's out of the market for the time, and like I said, when the breweries are combining, it's no longer Evan's Lager anymore. It's Evan's Brewing Company, but those are not available yet. With this new project that I've shown you, people will be able to find it and understand it in one location, and eventually we'll be in. We'll work to get into the liquor or grocery store chains, Bevmos, or what is it?
Total Wine.
Total Wines. Right now, you can get the Bayhawk beers in Total Wines or Bevmos, or I think we're in some Albertsons and Vaughn's around. Safeways and stuff like that.
So if people want to follow you and see what's going on and this new venture that we have not talked about over the air, if people want to know what's going on and when beers become available and whatnot, where do they go to follow you?
I guess my Instagram.
Instagram,
which is very, very me. Even though it says Evans Brewing Company is the at Evans Brewing Company.
At Evans Brewing. Do you guys do a Twitter or a Facebook, or what about your website?
We have evanslager.com.
Okay.
But that will eventually go away. But if you typed in Evans Lager, it would port to the new website or transfer you over.
And if people have questions for you, can they get a hold of you directly?
Through the
email?
Through the email on the website, evanslager.com. There's an email you can go straight to me. So
awesome.
If you have any questions on who we are and what we're doing.
What is your favorite non-your company beer?
I don't have a specific, but I do like milk stouts a lot. So Left Hand makes a really good milk stout. I like milk stouts. Left Hand milk stout, let's just say that. I like that beer.
Perfect.
I don't even know if it's around here right now. I usually get it when I'm in Colorado or around the country. I don't think it's made it this way yet.
Sweet. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Again, you can check out Evan Rapport at evanslager.com or Evans Brewing Company on Instagram. Yeah. So check that out. Again, Prestige Living. You can reach us on prestigelivingpodcast.com if you're interested in showcasing your talent and sharing your entrepreneurial story with us as well. So again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yep.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
If you would like to be on the Prestige Living podcast or know someone that would be a great guest, go to www.prestigelivingpodcast.com. We'd love to hear your story.